Hi, kindergarten. It's Mrs. Shervani. So while we are doing online school, I get to read all of the listening and learning stories that we read every single day in our classrooms. And listening and learning is one of my favorite parts of the day because I love to read. So I'm really excited that I get to do this part. So a few days ago, we started a new unit on colonial towns and townspeople, and we've read three stories so far that have taught us what life was like in America hundreds of years ago. So right now you're looking at what a kitchen might have looked like hundreds of years ago. And this is a photo of what a child's bedroom used to look like hundreds of years ago. And I remember that a lot of colonial townspeople had to make most of what they needed at home. They didn't have malls, they didn't have stores like Target, they didn't have places like that they could just go shop and get whatever they wanted. And I also remember that the children had to do a lot of chores. Can you think of one of the chores that they had to do? I remember they had to churn butter. That was a lot of work. Colonial townspeople children had a lot of perseverance because they had to do so many things that we don't have to do today. We also read about the towns, and we read that there was one store called the general store, which you could go and get some things, but they didn't have a wide variety of stuff to buy. The general store might have looked something like that. And here's one last photo of what a town might have looked like. Then we started reading about different colonial jobs, and the first job we read about was the baker and the bread maker. And they would make some yummy treats just like the ones you see. And I love bakery treats. I am thinking about this Danish right here. I would love for that to get in my belly right now. Then on Monday, we read about the spinners and the weavers. The spinners used thread with this cool tool, and the weavers used cloth with this cool tool, and they would make a cool tool, rhyming words. They would make fabric, and the fabric would be used for the jobs we're going to learn about today. So today we're going to talk about dressmakers, tailors, hatters, and cobblers. And all of these jobs are related to shopping and clothes. And I love to shop. Do you like to shop? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's okay if no, but it's cool if yes. I know that when I go shopping, there are so many things that I can buy. I could buy a vest, I could buy a sweater, I could buy pants, I could buy capris, I could buy shorts, I could buy a skirt, a sweatshirt, a long sleeve shirt, a tank top, a short sleeve shirt. So many things. In fact, sometimes I get overwhelmed in a store because there are too many choices, and it stresses me out to have so many choices. I know there's clothes for boys, clothes for girls. There's so many options. And most of today's clothes are made in factories. So they're made using big machines, and they're made super, super quickly. But that wasn't what it was like in the colonial times. Making even just one dress or shirt took a lot of time and a lot of effort, even for the best tradesperson. So today we're going to learn exactly what went into making clothes, dresses, and shoes and hats. And as we are reading, listen out to find more about those 4 different types of tradespeople. I already listed them a few times, but we'll read a little bit more about them. So, in KA, when we read our stories, we like to get snuggled up so we can be comfortable to accept some new information. In my classroom, we can sit crisscross applesauce, mountain, mermaid, legs out in front of you, or maybe since you're at home, you could lay on your bellies with your hands on your face, bring your elbows propped up and get nice and cozy like that, or maybe you want to just put your hands under your chin, whatever is cozy for you. So find a cozy spot in 3, in 2, in 1, and we're ready. Here we go. Let's check out what this first picture is about. In colonial America, most people made their own clothes. This was especially true for farmers, who had everything they needed to make clothes on their farms. Because making clothes was hard work, most people only had 2 outfits, 1 set of work clothes and 1 set of fancier clothes to wear on a Sunday. That was it. People did not get new clothes until their old clothes were worn out. Some farmers and their families had the money to buy clothing instead of making it themselves. So they would take a trip into town when they needed new clothing. There they would find several different people who specialized in making different things: the dressmaker, the tailor, the hatter, and the cobbler. So those are the 4 jobs we're going to read about today. First, the dressmaker. In the old days, there were no racks full of dresses for women to try on. It took a lot of time for a dressmaker to make a dress, so she wanted to make sure someone would buy every dress that was made. And it cost a lot of money to buy a dress, so a farmer's wife wanted to choose the exact color and style she wanted. The dressmaker might display 1 or 2 dresses in the shop window, but most dresses had to be made to order. If a woman was very wealthy, she might even order a dress from England. Ooh, we learned all about England and the royal family. So there is a picture of a fancy dress. And let me show you the tools that they had to use. When a woman came in looking for a new dress, the dressmaker might show her some patterns designed according to the latest fashions. The woman could choose the pattern and the fabric that she liked best. The dressmaker would then use a measuring tape, here is the measuring tape, to measure the woman's arms and legs, as well as her chest, neck, and waist. So this measuring tape right here would help the dressmaker to figure out the woman's size. They didn't want the dress to be too big or too small or too long or too short, so they would use this to make sure it fit just right. Finally, the dressmaker might add fancy finishing touches like hand-knitted lace or embroidery around the collar or hem of the dress. It would sometimes take several weeks to make a new dress. Oh my goodness. So they had to use that needle and that thread to stitch it up and get it just right, and then add some fancy touches, and I like details, so that looks really cool. My nanny made me something like that. Let's see what this silly picture is about. The tailor. Job number 2, the tailor. Tailors did the same kind of work as dressmakers, but they made clothing for both men and women. People who wanted new clothes could visit a tailor and have their measurement taken. The tailor would then make a shirt or a pair of breeches to order. Breeches were the knee-length pants that men wore in colonial times, along with long woolen stockings. That guy looks funny, huh? He's very curious looking. Now we will read about the hatters. Almost everyone in early America wore a hat. In fact, it was considered strange and even a little rude to walk around bareheaded. Men wore hats with brims and women wore soft bonnets. People wore hats to keep their heads warm and dry, to keep the sun out of their eyes, and to protect the expensive wigs that they frequently wore. People who made men's hats were called hatmakers or hatters. Men's hats were made out of beaver skin, wool, or camel fur, and were fastened, that means held together or attached, with glue that the hatter mixed himself. As with clothing, people could not simply walk into a hat shop and walk out with a hat on the same day. Instead, a customer chose a particular style of hat. A style of hat had his or her head measured by the hatter and came back days or weeks later when the hat was done. So they had to wait a really long time for their dresses and their pants, and their hats to be made. I don't know if I would have the patience to wait that long for my clothes to get stitched. Do you think you would? I don't know. I wouldn't. Now let's read about the shoemaker. That is our fourth one, right? Of all their clothing, shoes were the hardest for farmers to make themselves. So when a farmer needed a new pair of shoes, he would visit the cobbler or the shoemaker. The cobbler would make shoes to order, just as was done with the dressmaker, tailor, and hatter. Most people had only 1 or 2 pairs of shoes. Plenty of people had no shoes at all. Poor farmers and their families didn't wear shoes for most of the year. If a farmer did have shoes, he might wear the same pair of shoes every day for months. As a result, shoes were worn out quickly. Most farmers could not afford to buy a new pair of shoes that often. So instead of buying new shoes, they would just take their old shoes to the cobbler to have them patched or repaired. Cobblers spent as much time fixing old shoes as they did making new ones. Hey, Mr. Shervani just took his favorite pair of dress shoes to a shoemaker to get fixed, just like people in the colonial times used to do. That's pretty cool. Let's read our next photo. The shoemaker used many specialized tools for his trade. In early America, most shoes were made out of leather, which comes from the dried hide of a skin or the dried hide or skin of a cow. There were 2 parts to a shoe, the sole and the upper, both made from leather. The sole was the bottom of the shoe, and the upper was the top part of the shoe. Just like a dressmaker or tailor, the shoemaker would take measurements, cut the leather, and then use a needle and thread to sew the pieces together. Wow, these are all some hard-working tradespeople. Here is our last photo. Making clothes, hats, and shoes was hard work. Farmers who could afford it were very happy to pay other people to do the work for them. Today, it's much easier to purchase clothes. We can choose from a variety of styles that are already sewn, rather than getting measured and waiting for weeks to get our new clothes. I'm really thankful for that. And we don't even have to go to 4 different tradespeople to get clothes, hats, and shoes we wear. We can just go to 1 store. So you might go to Target or Walmart or a store in the mall to get your clothes. The end. So in the beginning, we wanted to see if we could list the 4 different people who worked together to make clothes. Do you remember what they are? Think. There were 4 people. Did you get it? I bet you did. There was the dressmaker, the tailor, the hatter, and the cobbler. 4 different tradespeople. Now, I want you to think, and this is your challenge before we end. Which one would you like to be? A dressmaker, a tailor, a hatter, or a cobbler? Which would you find the most interesting? And here is your challenge. I would like you to draw a picture of which tradesperson you would like to be if you were a Colonial Towns person, and send a picture of that to your classroom teacher. And they will be so happy to see that, and they'll get back to you right away, I am sure. That is the end of our story for today. Tomorrow, we're going to read about the elves and the shoemaker, and it's a really silly fictional story, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for reading with me. We learned a lot about those 4 tradespeople. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.